Ketu and Taurus and Rahu and Scorpio now. Now we have an earth sign, water sign. So we're dealing with material, emotional issues. So, Rahu and Ketu in the Taurus-Scorpio axis is the balance between material and emotional security. And security is a key word here. Okay? The reason being because fixed signs like Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius are security-centered signs. They want things that are fixed and stable and lasting and secure. Okay? Movable signs like Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, they're concerned with actions. So, Rahu in Libra, Ketu in Libra is more about actions. Trading with other people is an action. It's our actions with other people to create win-win situations. Aries is actions that we do on ourselves. Aries isn't about creating security. Aries is about performing actions with security. Libra is about performing actions with others, successfully. So it's about the action. That's the key whenever we have these movable signs. But now we've got fixed signs. It's about security. So Taurus is material security, and Scorpio is emotional security. Aries is, self-actions. Libra is social actions. Just that simple. Those are defining qualities of those four signs. All right, so Ketu, or Taurus, is that material security, which is only as good as one's emotional security, which is Scorpio. And one's emotional security is really only as solid as one's material security. Okay? And it's Taurus and Scorpio that make people stable. Taurus makes people materially stable, where you can count on them materially. Scorpio makes people emotionally stable, where you can count on them emotionally. Okay? All right, so when a person has Ketu and Taurus, or Rahu and Taurus, when they have Ketu and Rahu in these axes, the Taurus-Scorpio axis, we're always going to be dealing with issues of them becoming truly materially and emotionally secure. They might be secure in one, but really not if they're not equally secure in the other. Okay? So Ketu and Taurus. This is a person who's in their little perfect world. They're really materially secure. They're very skilled at using their resources. They're very skilled at managing their responsibilities. They're very capable of, and they just find a high degree of security in being resourceful, self-sufficient, and so on. Okay? They very easily provide to other people. Okay? They're a great resource in general to themselves and other people. And because of that, they feel safe and secure until Rahu and Scorpio awakens up to their emotional pains and emotional needs. And then Rahu and Scorpio shows them that they're extremely vulnerable. Okay? And then they're really not secure here on Earth, are they? Because when it comes down to it, material security has the purpose of providing food, shelter, and warmth so we can survive on Earth. That's what the bull Taurus is all about. It's providing us with the things essential to our physical survival. And if we're materially resourceful, or we have a lot of material abundance, we can take care of those things easily. Okay? But that doesn't make us secure in the world if emotionally we're prone to getting wounded. Right? Because emotional pains, heck, they hurt worse than fasting for 2 weeks. I mean, what hurts more? Not eating a month or being brokenhearted for a month? I would choose not eating for a month any day. It's a lot less painful. So Rahu and Scorpio over here shows Ketu and Taurus that he's really not as safe and secure in the world, because the world is just not a material place. It's also a very emotional place. And that they can be in danger and get threatened very easily. Now, the complex with Rahu and Scorpio is a lack of emotional security, and they're just not emotionally feeling safe. And that results in fear of the unknown and unfounded worries. So even though they might feel capable materially, there's little things nagging at them. They just don't feel safe. I got $1 billion in the bank. I got a house and a car with, bullet glass windows. I should be safe wherever I go, but I'm not. I'm still feeling scared. That's Rahu and Scorpio, telling them no matter what you have materially in your own little universe, there's a whole world out there that's still going to be threatening to you emotionally. So you need to develop that emotional world and develop equal emotional strength so that you're really a secure person and a responsible person. So this material security of Ketu comes as a result of material responsibility, which means taking care of our responsibilities that are material. But we will fail in that at some point if we're not emotionally responsible. Emotionally responsible means we understand the effects our feelings and emotions are going to have on our lives and other people's lives. Okay? And if a person's not emotionally secure, they're going to, out of deep emotions, do things that ruin their material security. Recently I had a person who had a similar situation like this, a client, I think it was 2 days ago actually, and this person was always really responsible all their life, valedictorian in high school, grew straight A's, and so on and so on. But then they found love for the first time when they were in med school, where they really fell in love with the girl. As a result of falling in love, their emotions got the better of them, and they emotionally did, out of that emotional push, they did things that ended up with them getting kicked out of medical school. Literally, with 3 months to go, they get kicked out of medical school because emotionally they didn't pay enough attention to being emotionally responsible, which is meaning really listening to the consequences of following their feelings. And they made a mess of their lives. Okay? So Rahu and Scorpio will do that. An emotional weakness at some point will blow up in the person's face and cause them to hurt their material security, actually. Okay. But these people are always a little bit worried. There's always a little bit of fear. And ironically, the fear that this person had was actually for the death of their girlfriend. Okay? And so there was I guess I'll just tell you, it's sort of interesting. An astrologer had told this girl that if she wasn't married by a certain age, she would die. And the astrologer was completely crazy to say that, and it wasn't even right, okay, based on the chart. There was nothing like that. But that created this ungrounded fear of his girlfriend dying. And so that got him into a huge emotional state that made him ruin his material security. Okay? So, there's always some fear of unknown, unfounded worries. When an astrologer tells you something like, if you don't get married by this age, you're going to die, that's just not how it works. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way. If you're going to die at a certain age, you're going to die at a certain age, whether you're married or alone. Just that simple. So this was an unfounded Rahu and Scorpio type worry or fear. Okay? So to compensate for those things that are bothering them, that aren't really concrete fears, they're just little worries in the back of their mind or superstitious worries, okay? These people will, they will hide their pain and stress. They'll act like nothing's happening. This person hid all these problems, all these fears, all these worries from his entire family. He even married the girl in secret so she wouldn't die, because he knew his parents weren't ready for him to get married until he was done with medical school. So he married the girl in secret so she wouldn't die. So he hides all this fear and worry and pain and his life from that. So this is an extreme case of Rahu, this type of Rahu emotional security thing. If this person had been more emotionally secure, they wouldn't let that kind of freaky prediction make them do things that were completely irrational. Getting married at a premature age, hiding, eloping because they didn't want their parents to know, plus other immature things that got them kicked out of medical school. Okay? And again, this was a person who had always been Ketu and Taurus here. So totally grounded, totally secure, a great friend, straight A's, hard worker, materially someone you could really count on. Until this fear got awoken up by Rahu here. These people will hide their pain and stress. They'll have difficulty in intimacy. They don't want to give of themselves. They don't really want to show their true feelings. They want to close it down. Okay? And they may, in worst case scenarios, turn to addictions to escape those types of things. So there's an escapism, a desire to get away from those fears through hiding them or some type of addictions. Okay? This person chose to hide everything, even though everything they were hiding impacted their life. Because just because you hide something, sweep the dirt under the rug, doesn't mean the dirt is not there molding and rotting and going to make you sick. And it still will. So, when hiding doesn't work, and trying to escape it through and those fears of being emotionally insecure. And what is emotional security? Emotional security is just wherever you are, you feel safe. It's a feeling of safety. Okay? Having $1 billion in the bank is a material reason for safety, but it doesn't mean you're going to feel safe. There's lots of people with $1 billion in the bank who still need more in order to feel safe. Or you can just be a person who really feels safe, even though you have nothing, but you still feel safe. You have this emotional assurance that you're going to be okay. And what emotional security really comes down to, the way I like to spell out the best, being emotionally secure means that you trust that whatever happens in life, that you can handle it. That's emotional security. Okay? Because Rahu in Scorpio doesn't have that emotional security, it doesn't feel safe, so it worries. And it thinks of the negative things that can happen. And it tries to escape those things, which is typical of water. Water is an escapism element, okay? Doesn't have that feeling that things will be okay. So they don't want to trust other people. They don't want to trust in intimacy. They don't want to trust another person to come through for them, okay? They can be closed off sexually too, because when they get together sexually with someone, there's more room for them to get hurt. Okay? But ultimately, emotional security means that, sure, the world's going to beat us up, things are going to go wrong, I know you promised to love me forever, but is that really going to happen? Who knows, right? There's no way of knowing until the end of our lives. Emotional security means trusting that no matter what happens, we're going to be able to get through it okay. Okay? And that's an attitude that's really important for marriage or anytime we have something with a deep level of commitment. And that's why Scorpio and the 8th house, which is same as Scorpio, have to do with our ability to trust other people. Because trusting other people really means we trust that no whatever happens, that we'll be able to handle it. Okay? So when a person has that level of emotional security, then they're really able to be materially secure. Then they're really able to invest their wealth and resources and give to their friends because they feel safe no matter what their friends do in return, no matter what happens to that investment, no matter what happens to their wealth. If they're emotionally secure in Scorpio, they feel no matter what happens, I'll be okay. Even if I lose it all, even if all my Taurus gets ripped right out of my life and I'm broke on the streets, an emotionally secure person will still feel like somehow they're going to make it okay. Okay? That's a sign of a great Scorpio or a great 8th house. Okay? A bad Scorpio or a bad 8th house is the very opposite. It's people are always fearful and worried. And then they try to hide and escape it or be in denial of it. And that's a painful way to live. Okay. Now, when being in denial of it, trying to escape it, or turning to addictions doesn't alleviate their fears or make their fears go away, these people do one or two of two things. In Scorpio, they usually just become apathetic. They usually just get cut off. They emotionally just cut off from everything. Or they just don't care about things anymore. They don't care about the person they're having sex with. They just have sex anyway because it gives them a little bit of an endorphin rush or a hypothalamus rush, whatever. And you will see sex addicts who have that. You know, in sexual addictions, lots of times you see people who just don't care. It's not a big deal. They don't care about things. They're cut off, apathetic. So we see Rahu and Scorpio especially like to be apathetic and just not care anymore. And also, there'll tend to be a tendency to be jealous of what other people have. Okay, there's that jealousy steps in. That's the breakdown of Rahu in Scorpio. Jealousy and apathetic behavior. But in Scorpio, it's especially apathetic behavior. Nothing matters. Just that simple. And that's the rock bottom way of Rahu and Scorpio trying to feel safe and secure in a world that's not safe and secure. If nothing matters, I'm safe and secure, right? It's an easy way. But the truth is, everything does matter. And so, Rahu and Scorpio, the apathetic behavior doesn't work. What has to happen is the person has to just have the courage to trust that no matter what happens, they can take care of it, which is Ketu and Taurus. Okay? No matter what happens, they can manage, which is Ketu and Taurus. And when they realize that, I can't trust anybody or anything, but I only can trust that whatever happens, I can get through it. At that point, their emotional security is perfected, and then they're really materially secure, and really secure in this world, which is what Ketu and Taurus has always been striving for. So this is one of the more painful places, Rahu and Scorpio for sure, is one of the more painful places for it to be. You know, Scorpio is the most painful sign. Stick Rahu in there, and this person's going to have some really severe emotional things happen in their lives. All right, what about we have it the opposite way? Okay, Ketu and Scorpio, Rahu and Taurus. Okay, now we have a person who's emotionally secure, who's really put a lot of emphasis on their emotional security. They're emotionally strong, they're extremely contained emotionally. They're emotionally self-sufficient. They're emotionally responsible for themselves. When they're upset, they don't need someone to talk to. They're not going to call you and ask for help. They're not going to nag you, okay, for things, okay? They're emotionally self-contained. In fact, you'll see less people with Ketu and Scorpio coming to astrologers, okay, because they're emotionally self-sufficient and self-contained in general. And they try to get through their own pains by themselves. Now, let me find my placement. And they tend to be very emotionally introverted people in general. Okay? So they're emotionally secure. But they become to such a, because again, wherever Ketu is, we've never perfected. It's something we've worked out that we think is working in our own little world, but in the bigger picture, it's not. Ketu and Scorpio get so emotionally self-contained, they're so emotionally secured, we could say, to a fault, where they're not able to see past their emotional needs. And as a result, Rahu and Taurus, which is their material needs, is undeveloped. Okay? Sure, it's important to take care of the emotional needs, but we still have a body that has material needs. And we can't ignore those things. If we do, if our body's ignored, if our material needs are ignored, emotionally we're going to break down, right? There's only so much a person can take. If you've been living in a sewer for 12 years because you have no money, you're going to get post-traumatic stress syndrome or something. You know, you're going to crack eventually. So, especially if you're eating improperly and being malnourished, you see? So being emotionally secure and emotionally self-contained is not going to let you survive healthily over a long period of time if you're not materially able to take care of yourself, which is Rahu and Taurus. Now, Rahu and Taurus people tend to struggle materially, okay? There's a tendency of feelings of lack of self-worth. And that feeling is there because of not being validated materially. Not being given things materially, presents, good food, a healthy family life, validation from our friends and, family, things like that, which make us have a sense of self-worth. Not having a sense of self-worth, Rahu and Taurus has a hard time attracting the necessary things to have material security and material well-being. And, when somebody it's a physical world we live in, and so much of the validation we get from other people happens in a material level. Okay? We're told that we're good at something, that we have a skill, a resource. That validates us materially. That validates that we can do something in the world. We're told we're beautiful. That validates our body. Whatever the case may be. We're given a present on our birthday. That validates us materially. Most of the validation we get in the world is done materially. Okay? Even when somebody says, I love you, a lot of that validation is materially. It's because it's coming from another person in a body that it matters, right? We know God says He loves you. Christ says He loves us. But that's not nearly as validating as when a person of the opposite sex tells us they love us. And it's not as validating as our parent telling us they loves us, or even our sister telling us they loves us, right? When people with bodies tell us something, there's a material validation to it that we crave, and that's what Taurus is about. So when Rahu's in Taurus, the person doesn't get that validation. Or if they get it, they're so closed off by it from being so introverted with Ketu and Scorpio that they just don't receive it. It's really fun to give Ketu and Scorpio compliments because they just shrug them off or don't even listen. They just act like you didn't say anything sometimes. They're just not into hearing good things about themselves because they want to be emotionally, totally self-sufficient and self-resourceful. So Ketu doesn't want that validation when it's in Scorpio. But they do need it. They need that material validation. Rahu in Taurus has a void, a darkness, in receiving material validation. So they have a lack of self-worth, and they don't have a good sense of inherent self-worth or self-value. So they tend to work for less than they deserve. They have a hard time receiving gifts. They feel guilty when anything goes wrong, even if they had nothing to do with it, even if they know they had nothing to do with it. If they're a kid and the teacher comes up and says somebody, toilet papered the flagpole, they're going to feel guilty, even though they had nothing to do with it. They just immediately assume that they're going to be the ones that aren't going to be validated, that they're going to be the ones that are blamed. And they have a hard time getting gifts. They have a hard time getting paid what they're worth. They literally feel guilty and undeserving at that point, because they just don't have the self-worth to receive the benefits materially that they deserve. Okay? Over time, not receiving those benefits is going to cause them to crack emotionally. Because part of life is getting validated. It's just part of life. Okay? I remember, Yogananda just had to get validation from Sri Yukteswar. He literally begged Sri Yukteswar to tell him that he loved him. He needed to hear Sri Yukteswar say, I love you. He had that need. He needed that validation coming from a body. Sri Yukteswar was just saying, why are you asking such stupid questions? You shouldn't have to ask that. But Yogananda just had to be validated materially. Okay? So you'll see how it's just a human need, no matter what level of evolution we're at, to be validated materially by something in a body, by a gift, by a present, by whatever, by a proper price for our work. And when we're validated that way, it makes us feel more emotionally secure. It's a two-way street, or it's the same street. Okay, so when Rahu in Taurus doesn't get validated materially, they have a lack of self-worth, and they, tend to feel guilty for whatever they get. The way they compensate for that, Rahu being always an interesting planet can do one or two things. Sometimes these people will just be renunciates. So they'll just renounce materiality. They'll just say materiality doesn't matter. They'll go to that extreme of money, wealth, family, friends. None of it's important. They have the renunciate attitude. Because they're not feeling validated there, so they decide to walk away from it. Now, that's not real renunciation, right? Renunciation is when you're feeling validated, when you're feeling loved, when you got a great paying job, and you walk away for it from God. Okay? When you're not getting any of those things, and you say, oh, none of that's any good, well, what really happened there was that the world renounced you. And so you decided that was a good thing. That's not renunciation. Renunciation is when you have everything going for you, and you decide it's not really what you want. But Rahu in Taurus is not that kind of renunciate. It's the other kind of renunciate, where because it doesn't feel validation or receive validation or have material abundance or finds it a struggle to have material success, it decides out of that weakness that those things aren't important and then decides to renounce those things. Okay? That's unhealthy renunciation. That's when the world renounces us. Since that's not going to work, or the other way that Rahu and Taurus will sometimes go, it'll try to compensate by getting lots of money, lots of resources, lots of power, things like that. So they feel really, so there's this feeling of being really validated and really worthy, and you know, they try to validate themselves materially by themselves. They try to hoard money. They try to make their name famous. They have this burning need to be famous, this burning need to be wealthy, because they think when they have that, they're going to feel validated, that their self-worth is validated, and they're going to feel materially secure. But again, they never will. Because material security is just a perfected element of emotional security, really. They're one and the same. And again, wherever Ketu is where we think we're perfect in our little world, but where we really have a lot of issues. And Rahu's here to show us that. So Rahu in Taurus is true materiality, showing Ketu and Scorpio that he's not as emotionally secure as he thinks he is and hopes to be. Okay, he's not enlightened yet. Then the breakdown stage of Rahu and Taurus. Okay, I'm sorry, that is the breakdown stage. Okay. When renunciation doesn't work, and when becoming a billionaire doesn't make Rahu and Taurus feel any more worth, any more valuable, any more useful on this planet, any more desired on this planet, they have the breakdown. And at that point, the only thing they can do is find a healthy outlet for developing their resources. And that means taking care of things that are important to them. Finding what's valuable to them, that's worth taking care of. Okay? Because Taurus is all about being responsible and taking care of things. And so they need to find something they want to take care of. It can be people, it can be animals, it can be something. They need to find something that they can be responsible and take care of. And through doing that useful thing, by being responsible materially, they'll grow into a better place in life and get validation for their things that they're being responsible for. So it's about moving away from this emotional responsibility into deciding to become materially responsible, because being materially responsible makes us feel good about ourselves. That's why. Rahu and Taurus needs to learn that being responsible makes us feel good about ourselves. It gives us a sense of worth. How worth are you? Are you worth $1 billion in the bank? Or are you worth the 1,000 animals that you saved from dying on the streets due to starvation? You know, you're worth what you're responsible for. If you have a family, you're worthwhile on the planet because you're taking care of your family. If you're a guru, you're worthwhile on the planet because of the people you teach. Just like that, okay? If you're a doctor, you have value and worth because of the people you take care of. You know, if you're into water preservation, you're worthwhile because of the things you can do and think of to preserve water. Whatever it is. Rahu and Taurus needs to find something to be materially responsible for, because doing that creates a sense of self-worth. Instead of renouncing things, or instead of trying to hoard material goods in order to prove that they're worth something. We're only worth as much as we're responsible for. That's what Rahu and Taurus is here to learn. Okay? And once a person learns that, it feels good. They have self-worth. They have validation. And that helps them feel more emotionally secure in Ketu. Because if a person thinks they're emotionally secure, but they don't have any worth in the world, which is Rahu and Taurus, they're not really emotionally secure. How can you find emotional security in a world where you're useless. You just can't. We're only going to find security if we're in a place where we feel worthwhile. So Rahu in Taurus is teaching Ketu to have a deeper emotional security that comes from feeling worthwhile because of what they're taking care of in the world. Okay? So Rahu in Taurus, we always need to find these people something to do to be responsible for the sake of responsibility. And they won't at first. At first, Rahu in Taurus usually goes after money in most cases. Money is everything. You got to have a high-paying job. You know, if you get paid a lot, it shows that you're important. No, it's not. It's what you're taking care of that determines what you're important. It's the good you do that determines your worth. Not how much you make, not your salary figure. But Rahu in Taurus at first always goes into the salary. They want money. They want materiality to prove stuff. They want a good name. They want a good reputation. They want all these external sources of validation, when what they really need to do is to be responsible for something bigger than themselves that makes them have a sense of self-worth. Okay? And then they'll be a truly emotionally secure person because they have value in the world. As long as we don't have value in the world, we're not going to be very secure while we're in this world. Okay, so that's Rahu and Ketu in